My, my name is Reva Chambliss. I'm the Vice Chair of the Met Council, and I serve as council member for District 2. I will be chairing this evening's meeting in the absence of Chair Zelli. And we have several items on our agenda. We'll start with the Dakota Land, Water, and People Acknowledgement.
I'll do it. All right. The Metropolitan Council acknowledges that the land we currently call Minnesota, and specifically the seven-county region, is the ancestral homeland of the Dakota Oyate, who are present and active contributors to our thriving region. As part of the Metropolitan Council's commitment to address this unresolved legacy of genocide, dispossession, and settler colonialism, and the fact that that government institutions, including the Metropolitan Council, benefited economically, politically, and institutionally after the forcible removal of the Dakota Oyate, the Metropolitan Council is dedicated to instilling land, water, and people commitments in regional policy. These commitments support the Dakota Oyate, the 11 federally recognized tribes in Minnesota, Ho-Chunk Nation, and the American Indian communities representing over 150 diverse tribal nations that call the seven-county region home.
Thank you, Councilmember Obasaka. Next, we have approval of the agenda. Does anyone have any changes or corrections to the agenda? If not, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
It has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
And seconded. The agenda is approved. The next item on the agenda is approval of the July 23rd, 2025 Metropolitan Council minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So make a motion.
It has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
And seconded by Councilmember Carter. And if there are no corrections, then we will consider those minutes approved.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
We need to vote.
Pardon me?
We need to vote.
Oh, let's go ahead and take a vote to approve the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. The minutes are approved. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is a public invitation. It looks like we have one person signed up, and interested parties may address the council on matters not on the agenda. And we have one person pre-registered. Each person that speaks is limited to a 3-minute presentation. Is Andrew Boardman here?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Andrew Boardman with the ATU 1005. We represent the bus operators, train operators, mechanics, support staff here for Metro Transit. I came today hoping to have an opportunity to stand or sit in front of Charlie Zelli, but he is not here. I want to talk to you. If you were at the Transportation Committee meeting, you heard from me there as well. I'm here because the Met Council, even before a lot of you, has made some errors when it comes to transportation, and I want to change it. I want these things to stop happening. We have the constant negative press you guys get for the rail extensions, and now we have the Big Lake shutdown, which is going to negatively impact many citizens, people who bought their homes where they bought so that they could take that train to work, businesses that moved in just because of the infrastructure there for the people commuting. Everyone's losing it because you guys are shutting down the North Star Rail way ahead of schedule. These mistakes, they affect people. Another mistake that was made, we made a big deal about this a few years ago. We called it the Louisiana Purchase. You all decided to send $12 million worth of work on our light rail vehicles down to Louisiana. We got the first train back finally, years overdue, and our mechanics here have to redo all of that work, all at the expense of the taxpayers because of how terrible that company did. All these things are on you, The public sees it. We need to stop doing that. We need to start looking at better solutions. Maybe not closing down a rail line that people depend on. Maybe planning better on light rail extensions. Not sending our work to scab states when we have perfectly good union labor here to do it. I'm here to ask you guys to start rethinking some of these transportation ideas that come before you. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council for the public invitation portion? Seeing none, we will move on to the next item on our agenda. And that is the public hearing, where we will have remarks. So at this time, we will have the opening of the hearing and convene the public hearing to take comments on the draft amendment of the 2050 Transportation Policy Plan, which is included in the Imagine 2050 Development Guide. The Transportation Policy Plan is the region's guiding document that translates a shared vision for our region's transportation systems into investment plans and decisions that help build and maintain that system. This amendment adds two things to the plan: the current proposed route alignment for the Blue Line Extension Project and the addition of the Metro Gold Line Extension Project, which would extend the Gold Line from downtown St. Paul to downtown Minneapolis, generally along I-94. You can find the full amendment at metrocouncil.org/TPP. Anyone who wishes to can provide comments. To make sure everyone can speak who wishes to, we may use time limits for comments. Individuals will have 3 minutes to comment. Representatives of organizations will have 5 minutes. This session is being recorded and live streamed. And when you speak, please state your name, first and last, your place of residence, and the organization you represent, if any. Written statements are also accepted, and you may leave a copy with us and/or email any comments to public.info@metc.state.mn.us. We do have a pre-registered list of speakers, and then anyone signed in can speak. So for our first TPP public meeting comment, we have Mark Hughes. Okay, I don't see Mark. Matt Bruns. You can come up to the dais and there are microphones for you.
Chair and council members, as a long-term Minneapolis resident, I want to recognize the council's commitment to equity, sustainability, and regional connectivity. These are values I too share. I stand before you not in opposition to progress, but in defense of thoughtful, equitable, and sustainable planning. The Blue Line extension, as proposed, falls short of those goals and risks diverting resources from more effective community-centered solutions and should not be included in the Met Council's 2050 plan. First, the financial implications of this project are significant. The extension's projected cost of $3.2 billion and growing, yet ridership estimates remain uncertain. With changing work patterns, remote employment, and constantly evolving transit preferences, we must ask whether this will yield the long-term value that the Twin Cities deserve. In an era of budget constraints, the 2050 plan should reflect fiscal prudence and adaptability, not legacy projects with questionable returns. Second, the equity impacts and risk of displacement are real. The alignment runs through communities that have historically faced underinvestment and displacement. While I appreciate the project's previous anti-displacement framework, history tells us that large-scale transit investments accelerate gentrification. Without robust protections, this extension will unintentionally price them out, undermining the very residents it aims to serve. Third, we must learn from our past experiences. Minnesota's track record with rail projects is troubling at best. The North Star commuter rail is being phased out after years of underperformance and taxpayer subsidies. The Southwest Light Rail extension is now nearly a decade behind schedule and $1.5 billion over budget. These aren't isolated missteps. They are systemic warning signs. We cannot afford to repeat them. Finally, let's talk about modern alternatives. The future of transit isn't just about laying tracks. It's about flexibility, accessibility, and innovation. Flexible microtransit, enhanced local bus service, and bus rapid transit can serve our communities faster, cheaper, and with less disruption. Let's invest in modern solutions that adapt to changing needs rather than locking ourselves into an antiquated rail system. In closing, I urge this council to pause and reconsider the inclusion of the Blue Line extension in the 2050 plan. This project may have merit in theory, but in practice, it risks becoming a costly, inflexible solution to a problem that demands community partnership and innovation. Let's prioritize forward-thinking transit that is community-driven, environmentally responsible, modern, flexible, and fiscally sound. Thank you for your time and your continued service to this region.
Thank you. Next, we have Nasiru T. Is there a Nasiru T? Those are the last three that I have signed up for the TPP public comments. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Okay, with that, I also want to note that we did receive a letter of support for the Blue Line extension from a coalition of labor organizations this afternoon. With that, I would like to thank, did you have a comment?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I won't testify. That letter came in just at the very end here prior to the meeting starting today. We'll make sure to circulate that to council members following the meeting this evening.
Very well.
Thank you.
Thank you for attending and participating in this public hearing. And with that, the hearing for the TPP is closed. To comment on the proposed 2040 Transportation Policy Plan Amendment, you can write the Met Council at 390 Robert Street North, St. Paul, Minnesota, or you can email the Met Council at public.info@metcouncil.state.mn.us, and record a comment on the public comment line is also an option at 651-602-1500 for TTY and 651-291-0904. At the close of this process, the staff will prepare a summary of comments along with the revised amendment. With that, this hearing is adjourned. The next item on the agenda is our consent business. We have 11 items on consent, so I would like to, at this time, take a motion for the consent business items.
So moved.
It has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been seconded by Councilmember Barber. Is there any discussion on the consent items? Without that, we'd like to take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That consent business items carry. For the non-consent business, there are reports of standing committees, and I am seeing no reports for community development, no reports for environment, no reports for management, no reports for transportation or joint reports. We do have other business today to vote on, and the first business item is 2025-197, which is appointment of the new Equity Advisory Co-Chair, and I will read that appointment. In July of 2025, the Equity Advisory Committee co-chairs and staff interviewed 3 candidates out of 3 candidates, and they decided to appoint 2 of those 3 candidates to the Equity Advisory Committee after careful considerations. The newly appointed members of the Equity Advisory Committee are Astrid Benedetto, at large, and Markia Knight, at large. Committee members will serve 4-year staggered terms and be eligible for reappointment for 1 additional 4-year term up to a total of 8 years. Notwithstanding the expiration of a committee member's term, the member will continue to serve until a successor is appointed to the council. Committee members may serve at the pleasure of the council and may be removed from the council at any time. The Equity Advisory Committee advises the Metropolitan Council in its work to advance equity in the metropolitan region. The work of the committee aligns with the Thrive Equity outcome. Thank you to the Equity Advisory Committee for the work you do and the passion you bring to the council. Is there a motion to approve Astrid Benedetto and Markia Knight as new at-large members of the Equity Advisory Committee effective immediately?
So moved.
It's been moved by Councilmember Pacheco and seconded by Councilmember Osman. Thank you. Any discussion? With no discussion,
Madam Chair, I would note that the title on the business item says appointment of new equity advisory co-chair. And I believe here you're just appointing at-large members. So I would suggest that we correct the title of the business item for future use, unless I'm misunderstanding.
we are making committee appointments for at-large members, so you are correct. So we will change that on the agenda so that it is noted that the appointment of these new equity advisories are for at-large members.
Thank you.
So it's been motioned and seconded, no discussion. So at this point, we'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, nay. This motion carries. The next item of business is 2025-204, which is Livable Communities Advisory Committee appointments for the 2025 to 2027 period. And I will read that as well. Today, on behalf of the Chair's office, we are bringing forward a recommendation for 12 appointments to the Livable Communities Advisory Committee, or LCAC. The LCAC is a technical review body for the Livable Communities Demonstration Account, transit-oriented development, and affordable homeownership grants through the Livable Communities Act program. They score applications on the criteria set by the council and make funding recommendations with support from our staff, as well as advise on activities like the LCA alignment with Imagine 2050, and 5 of the 12 recommended volunteers are recommended for reappointment. We are grateful to Stephanie Hawkinson, Aaron Johnson, Nicole Klanowski, Valerie Coles, and Matthew Ramadan for their continued service. Staff, Councilmember Cameron, and I, myself, interviewed candidates for the 8-person seats and made the recommendations you see today to Chair Zelli based on their expertise, their location and geography, and their lived experiences. We are excited to bring new expertise in transportation planning, workforce development, and affordable homeownership to the committee, as well as an emerging developer and someone who has experienced homelessness. So we have a great composition of members on the LCA committee, and I want to thank and acknowledge the volunteers that are rolling off of this committee. Former Mayor Bill Blonigan, Brian Doyle, Bernadette Hornick, Faye Seimer, and Mala Tao for their years of service. And with that, I would recommend the council appoint the 12 members listed in this business item to the LCAC. Are there any questions or comments on these appointments? So with that, I'd like a motion to approve the appointments. It's been moved by Councilmember Lee and seconded by Councilmember Morales. Any discussion? With no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Those appointments are carried. Thank you. We do have one item for information for today's Met Council meeting, and that is the divisional level operating budget. And we're going to have Ned Smith come up for that.
You need to phone a friend?
They need to phone several.
Yeah, exited.
We are clickerless.
Without a
You could try the errors. You could try the arrows on the keyboard. There you go.
Well,
Very
I'm
good.
here for you the whole time.
You've shut down your computers. I'm overriding. I'm going to manual. All right.
Okay.
So, good afternoon, members of the Metropolitan Council. My name is Ned Smith. I'm the Chief Financial Officer of the council. I will be joined shortly by my division partners as well to walk through the budget. The purpose of today is to walk through our overall operating budget. So we do the budget in quite a few steps. That says we actually started in May. We honestly started in December. But that is when we start putting together all of our budget numbers and we do the roll-ups. And then today on August 13th, as a info item, myself and my division partners will be sharing out the drivers of their operating budgets. And then you will vote on the 27th to approve the operating budget for preliminary operating budget, as well as the levies, and I'll walk through the levies today. And then on October 8th, we will do a similar thing with the capital side of the budget. So that's where, again, all of the divisions will walk through their capital plans. And then on the 22nd, we will vote on the unified budget for the adopted public comment. So that's the unified public comment that then gets released for public comment until December. Just for those of you who've been here a long time, you'll notice that we're a little early in December. We are switching the committee of the whole meeting and the second meeting of the month. We want to do that earlier to make sure we're timed appropriately with vacations as well as with other taxing entities in the region. So again, today is operations, which is about pass-throughs, debt service, and OPEB, other post-employment benefits. And then we will talk through capital program in October, and that's, again, the long-term plans. So I like to say that budgets are like gravity. They're not just a good idea, they're the law, and they are indeed the law. 473.125 is that the regional administrator has to develop and approve a budget through the council's approval. So we are rooted in statute. So let's start with 2026. With the so we have council levy authority is in three categories. We have the non-debt service, which is kind of the operations for our the general fund as well as regional administration. We are limited by the implicit price deflator, which sounds like a stun gun on Star Trek, but it is basically tied to the CPI. It's released by the state, and that's what determines how much we can raise our non-debt service levy. It's used for general purposes as well as livable communities, and it can be used for loans for the acquisition of the highway right-of-way, but that is fully funded. We also use our levy for our debt service, and that is debt service on parks and transit only. The ES levy is baked into their operations budget. So the levy is capped, the levy is not capped, but our bonding authority is. And that's based on authority from the legislature every 2 years, as well as a cap on the transit side and a cap on the park side. And then we have our 7-county metro region and transit capital levy communities. So depending on where you live will determine what levy you pay. And I'll walk through a map on that. So in terms of our levy strategy, our levy givens is that we must meet our transit and parks debt service needs. And then we also have a fixed statutory fiscal disparities levy of $5 million to the tax-based revitalization account. And then those are fixed, those are given, those are what they are. Your transit and debt service needs is kind of like your mortgage payment. So we look and see how much debt we have, what's the payment that's due in 2026, and that's how we set that levy. For strategy decisions, we want to maximize the general purpose levy and maximize livable communities demonstration account levy. And we have historically kept all of this at a 2% increase. So we balance it all, including our debt service. We combine all that, and we try not to, have not historically increased by more than 2%. That's not a law. That is a policy and a target of the council. And as I mentioned earlier, we don't levy for the highway right-of-way because that's sufficiently funded. So our debt service levies, you can see that of the total levies, almost 60% is for the actual debt service portion, and about the largest majority of that is for transit. So transit is the big blue chunk down there, and then parks is the green, and then the red is our non-debt service. So that's for the activation of the general fund, as well as our livable communities. The livable communities levies then is kind of into three categories. Our tax-based revitalization account levy, that's fixed. That's determined by the legislature. We have to have $5 million to pass through in the regional fiscal disparities pool. That's for cleaning up polluted areas, and it's commercial and industrial areas. Our livable communities demonstration levy, that's the one that's pegged to the implicit price deflator, which again kind of mimics CPI or inflation. And we're proposing $15.5 million for that for 2026. And other than that, we want to maximize our levy limit, but we are capped by the implicit price deflator. And then the local housing incentive account, that's $500,000 to the LCDA, and then $1 million to the general purpose levy, and that is also fixed. And what I point out is the levy that you're going to approve in 2 weeks, whatever levy we approve, we can lower it, but we can't increase it. So, and then naturally, being the finance guy, I'm trying to propose as high as we possibly can, while still being respectful of our ratepayers and making sure that they're getting good use of their investments. We're going to raise it 2%. That's quite modest, and we'll show you how that looks relative to the rest of their property tax bill in a minute. So the general purpose levy is for $19.8 million. That goes, it's our most flexible use. This is where we carry out our council responsibilities provided by law. Primarily, we use it for the community development administration, as well as our statutory transfer to our local housing incentive account. All of this then rolls to a total of $97.988 million for 2026. That is a 2% increase. And again, you can see the mass, almost 50%, 60% is for our debt service, most of that for transit. And then you can see how that's broken out across our general purpose versus our demonstration account. So who pays it and at what level? So the blue line represents the transit debt service levy areas. So those are the transit districts. The reds are the opt-outs, and everything else is the non-transit debt service. So what does that mean for a house for average ratepayer with a $300,000 house? Many of you who are sharp will say, geez, the average price nowadays is $400,000. I called this out, but we use it at $300,000 because that way you compare to last year and you still have a sense for whether that's reasonable or not. And I see.
Councilmember Wolf?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you go back one slide? The blue is what was originally the transit taxing district, and the red are communities that have been added in recent years. There was a long time when it was fixed, and then 4 communities got permission to add in. It's not the opt-outs, that's a different map.
And Regional Administrator, do you want to confirm that?
Thank you. Councilmember Wolf nailed it.
Thank you, Councilmember Wolf, for that correction.
So Forest Lake is in. I know that.
They haven't changed
They're
since.
not happy.
So it is, we are still sticking to $300,000 because that's what, it makes it easier to compare year over year. So you can see this is a pretty small piece at $48. This is per year. This is not per month. So $48 if you're in the transit tax area, and if you're outside of it, it's $18.20. Just to hammer it home, how small is that? It's so small that we're about 1.2% of a total property tax bill that an average resident sees. And that's driven, especially this number keeps shrinking because our partners in the counties and the cities and the schools are growing quite faster than 2%. So this 1.2 will continue to diminish as long as we hold to our 2% self-imposed limit. So in terms of the 2026 operating budget, you can see the total. So this is now rolled up. This is the entire council. We're rolling up to $1.8 billion for 2026. You can see the majority of that is operations. If we pull out debt service and pass through to the right, you can see how that breaks down into our key categories. Salaries and benefits is increasing mostly due to our ongoing wage growth as well as FTE growth. We're seeing both. Contracted services is up about $60 million across the entire council. A little over half of that is due to our IS increases, especially from Microsoft and other consulting. But we also have some increase in our transit contract services as we grow the TRIP program, Metro Transit Bus and Rail, and increased service hours for Metro Mobility.
Ned, can you just spell out OPEB for the full audience today?
Yeah, it's a not a huge sliver. Other post-employment benefits. So these are the liabilities that we have for folks that have retired, where we're still contributing to their benefit levels. Got to get a peg in for my predecessor. We realized we were underfunded in the aughts, and directed a large amount of money to try to build that back up. And in the late aughts, had the foresight to put about 60% of it in equities. And anyone that's followed the market since 2008 to now knows that we are in a very good position. So our OPEB is fully funded. That's very rare for a public entity, a government entity, or really anybody that has pension liabilities. So we are in a wonderful place with OPEB. So you can see, here's how it breaks out in terms of divisions as well as where the money comes from. So almost 2/3 is for our transportation division, about a quarter is for environmental services, a healthy quarter is, well, I don't know what you'd call that. Maybe that's a sixth, is for community development. But the majority of our budget is for transportation. In terms of where, and wastewater, in terms of where the money comes from, this is color-coded. We'll start color-coded, or for those that can't see colors. The upper right quadrant which is blue, is our customer fees. So that's wastewater charges that we charge our customer communities as well as our industrial customers, as well as bus fares or transportation fares. The green, which is kind of the bottom half almost, is from taxes and local money. So that's either sales tax, MVEST, or state appropriations. And then the rest is broken out between a federal property tax. As you can see, when you only grow property tax 2%, it's a pretty small portion of your income, and then some use of reserves in there as well, that the individual divisions will talk through their uses of reserves. So our FTEs were at about 5,770, similar to the prior in terms of budget. Transportation is the majority of that, almost 3/4. Environmental services is 703. They will probably point it out, but we're always proud to point out that in the 90s, environmental services had 1,200 people. We now have 2 more plants, and yet we're still at just over a half of where we were. So great efficiency from ES. Have to give a plug to my former employer. And then regional administration at 481. We have seen growth in regional administration lately, although 26 we're kind of plateauing in terms of headcount growth. Most of our growth in the regional administration is in our expenses, which we'll dive into now. For our general fund. So uses by department, the general fund is broken out into regional administration. So that's kind of what we consider headquarters or support services. So this is finance, HR, legal, IS, information services, which is a very big chunk of that, and other support services that we offer to our divisions. And then community development is the other, almost a third there for their operations. In terms of what are we paying for, you can see that almost more than half of that is for our headcount and our salary, our employees, our most valuable assets, and then contracted services makes up the other majority, the rest of them, the second largest piece there. These pie charts would look very similar year to year. So we're not seeing any great variations, just a little bit of growth across the board. General fund unassigned operating reserves, you can see that we are well above our fund balance relative to our reserve targets, almost double where we like to be. Well, we like to be double, almost double where we need to be to feel safe. So we're in a good shape there for our reserves. And then our regional administration, again, as I talked about support services, the The biggest chunk there, almost, well, 55% is information services. So we do offer, it's centralized computing. Some of the divisions have their own, particularly transit and ES, for their very division-specific applications, but the majority of our infrastructure is supported centrally by IS. Business services is the second largest chunk, and that's things like finance and OGC and regional administration. I believe regional administration might be in administration, but point here is that the largest lion's share of what we pay for is in IS. How that breaks out, again, you can see the more than half is dedicated to our salaries. The other biggest chunk at around 35% is our contracted services. And contracted services can be people, but can also be software, support, and other services.
Ned, on the business services, I think I would suggest like HR, property management, Office of Equity, Equal Opportunity.
I had a version that had the
It's okay.
notes right there that told me, and that didn't make it into this copy. So
Those would
I
just be
apologize.
some, yeah, those would be some, because financial services pulls out as its own chunk as a part of it as well, and then you end up with the other chunk of